Clucks and ducks.
Scott.
We wondered who was waiting. Okay, it's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and we're going to try this. Scott, tell me if you're getting too much wind on this microphone. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm not seeing anything. All right, well, I'm just going to go for it. We decided that we were going to do this instead of at the kitchen table, we are at the picnic table. And it's kind of nice weather, and so we're going to try it. But it is a little bit windy. Maybe you can see behind me, we got the campfire going. But nobody's sitting around it because they want to avoid me yelling at them if they're being loud, because all the kids are eating right here. So anyway, let's see. I'm just back from a consulting trip. I went up to northern Maine and visited with a friend, and then did some consulting down in southern Maine, and then visited with some family, and I'm back. I was gone for about 7 days. So I'm glad to be back. I came back to pretty nice weather and a new attitude, ready to hit the ground running. Okay, so today what I did is basically just did some cleaning up. It's kind of interesting how when all the snow goes, there's a lot of stuff laying around on the ground. And when Dad's not home, a lot of stuff gets hauled out and left on the ground. So there was a lot of that too that had to be cleaned up. And what we have on the docket coming up here is I have a construction project that I would like to get finished before I have to start cutting hay. I start cutting hay in June. So, you know, there's always things to do, and we have to get the garden prepped for planting. That'll be at the beginning of June as well. Got a lot of composting to do, which is something that I really kind of enjoy. All the manure that was deposited during the winter time from my cows up in the loafing area needs to be dug out, put on the truck, brought over here, put in a pile, and piled up. And then that'll be next year's compost. Compost that I built last year is about ready to go. So I'll be spreading that here shortly. Even moved a little bit of it out today in preparation for the summer. So I got a couple of dates that I'd like to go through. May 4th is going to be our fencing. And Jill says on here, you can fence in anything with a little training. Corner posts, electric fence, H-posts. We're going to be working with woven wire. We'll talk about a few other things, but mostly what I do is woven wire, and I use a little bit of barbed wire on top of it, or sometimes I just use electric wire on top of it. But that's going to start at 0900, and we'll go until we're done, okay? It's one of these things, it's going to go through lunch for sure, so if you could bring a dish to pass, that'd be great. Okay, Homesteaders Guild, the spring-summer session is going to be starting May 2nd. This is coaching and farm skills training, online class. The way it works is I put out a video on Thursday, Friday, which gives you a couple of days to view it, and then I do some support videos to back up what I'm thinking that you need to know here. And then on Tuesday we do a Zoom call where it's just us, people of the guild, and we can discuss all this stuff. And it's worked out pretty good in the past. We've got a fall class that we did and a winter class. Winter was mostly theory. This year we're going to get into the nuts and bolts. We're going to do fencing. We're going to do pastured poultry. We're going to be doing grazing. We're going to be doing composting. Soils. There is so much content. I could go forever. Okay. This is about building community, so there's going to be other people there. And we go as deep as we need to go. But this is my agenda that we're working as if my life depended on you succeeding in your homesteading operation. Okay? June 22nd, we're going to have a pastured poultry class. That also starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to go out and show you the brooder. We'll go to the tractor field. We'll discuss feeds. We'll discuss tractors. We'll discuss water systems. And we'll show you all this stuff too. Then we'll come back to the shop. We'll put together do the finishing touches actually on a chicken tractor so you can see it very close. This is going to be generation 3 chicken tractor too, that I haven't actually built one yet, but I've got it on paper, and it's time that I build some new chicken tractors, so you get to see that. And then we go over to the butcher shop, and the crowd of chicks that we have in the brooder right now should be ready. And everybody will get to do some chicken processing. So the idea is, on your way home, if you have a cell phone, you can call the hatchery and arrange to have your chicks delivered. By the time they come, you're going to have your brooder set up and you're going to know how to operate it. By the time your chicks are brooded, 3 weeks, 3 or 4, or maybe 2, depending on the weather, then you will have your first chicken tractor built. You probably might want to build 2. And by the time those are ready, your processing area will be all set up. And you will have a vertically integrated system where you can be a pastured poultry person, which is, I highly recommend it. That's kind of where we got started on this type of farming. Just to make it clear to you, we are now homesteaders. We were commercial farmers for about 13, 14, 15 years. And that, I would define that as everything we do, we have to convert it to dollars. In the homesteading process, you do a lot less of that, a whole lot less of it, but you diversify heavily. So I'm not recommending anybody, all of you, quit your day job and get into homesteading. That's really not it. This is a way to augment what you're doing and pursue the way of life that I think people are after. And as it progresses and you get to the end of your career in whatever you're doing, then you can leave it early and you can do this. There's always going to be some money exchanged, and but when it's a completely commercial operation, people have a tendency to focus on one thing, like a monocrop, because the whole idea is to produce it as cheaply as you can. The problem with that is you're competing with industrial agriculture, so you can't compete with industrial agriculture. Trust me, it's just not doable. But you are going to be able to produce these products that are going to have far more quality. You're going to get a lot more nutrition out of them, and you'll feel better about it. It's a great process. It's fulfilling and all that stuff. So that's homesteading. A lot of the homesteading processes center around food, but not all. I mean, there's a lot of skills that you need that support the production of food, like how to build a fence, and how to take care of the soil in your garden, how to know if the soil in your garden is good or not good, you know. There's lots of things like that. And then we really like to get into, okay, once you have a cow, now what do you do with it, you know? Once you have a chicken, then what do you do with it? There's all these different techniques that should be being passed down through the generations, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to pass these down. And I think in the guild, we all kind of learn a little bit, and we can share ideas and things like that. So let's see. The idea of this is to bring people together in a common setting Because today I received 2 phone calls on my cell phone. And it was, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I watched your video and I just got a quick question. I can't do that anymore because quick questions turn into, an hour-long conversation, which I would really love to have the time to do, but at this point I don't have the time to do that. So this is a way that we can field the questions, and that way all 14,000 of you out there that are listening right now, giving me 8,000 thumbs up, can hear the answers, and it disseminates it further out. So I would recommend that you give me a thumbs up and then share this. We're going Thursday night, usually we go Wednesday night, but I was traveling last night, so I wasn't able to do it. I think I was in the District of Columbia last night about this time. Okay, so in the questions we'd like to ask you if you could put the questions in all caps. Jill is sitting here with me on her laptop, and she fields the questions and puts them in order and then puts them in front of me, and then I go. A lot of the stuff Jill's the expert on. She's really worked with a lot of food and a lot of different cooking techniques. She has a lot of knowledge as far as health of the animals, health of the humans that live on the farm. You can ask questions about the environment, the farm environment. You can ask questions about farming and raising children. You can just ask questions on good old-fashioned stuff, and just stuff we may have discovered along the way. One of the things about the internet, it's a great resource, but the way people are now, they want to be the first one to answer, and then they want to be very, very dogmatic about it. And I try not to do that. I will tell you what has worked for me, and if I haven't done it, I'll have to say, well, I've never done it, but if I was going to do it, this is what I would do it. But most of these tasks in homesteading, if you're in the right state of mind and you sit and think about it for a minute, you can probably figure it out. And the further you get into this, you will see that everything kind of connects together. Everything kind of connects. And you get to a place where it's quite peaceful to be in this career field, and it's nice. You eat good. I will tell you, on my trip, I had some good pizza. But that was about it. It's hard to find good food. I mean, you can find food that says organic on it, but when you taste it, it's the same as the other stuff. It just doesn't say organic on it. So organic standards have been kind of commandeered, and that's a whole nother conversation. I don't really want to throw stones at my brethren that are doing organic farming and going and getting certified, but I don't do that. I don't need any kind of certification. We do have a customer base, but it's my customer base, Anybody that buys anything from me, they've been here and they see the way I do things. And so I don't need a third party coming in and saying, you're doing it right. I don't really need that. If someone comes and they ask me how you do something, once I explain it to them, then they understand how it works, and they understand why it's different. Okay. Think I covered everything, Mom? Oh, the Homestead Hog Harvest is going to be November 1st. That is a Friday, and I keep meaning to look and see how many years we're in, but I know we're in somewhere around our 10th year.
Oh, we started in 10.
Started in 10. Okay, well,
19, so 9 years.
9 years. All right. Started in 10. Okay, right. So this is where we start with live pigs on Friday afternoon. We'd like people to get here by noon, so we know people are traveling. And we actually kill pigs. We'll kill 1 pig per 6 students. And then one of the halves, so we're usually killing 2 or 3 or 4 pigs, but one of the halves is going to be the demonstration half, and that's the one that I will demonstrate all the cuts on, and then you will go back to your workstation and you will perform the same cut. This is totally hands-on. Nobody's going to do any shooting except for me, but you will stick the pig to bleed it out after I show you the first couple of times, or the first time. You will participate in the scalding and the scraping. These are Mangalitsa pigs, and they're kind of hairy, and so we dunk them in hot water and we scald the hair and we scrape the hair off. And then once that's done, we will open them up, we'll split them in half, get them in the shop. It's the cool part of the year, so they will cool off overnight, and when we start on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, they are ready to be handled. You know, when they're their own body temperature, they're kind of floppy, you know, like a floppy whale, like whale blubber. But once they set up, once they get cooled off, they're really nice to work with. And then we break them down into primal cuts, and the students do that, and then we take those primal cuts, and some of them, we break them down further from there. And, you know, a class like this, 3 days, if you learned everything, it would probably take 2 weeks, and it'd be hard to remember. But this is Homestead hog harvest. So this is a place where if you have a hog that you've raised from a little weanling, I recommend 2, you can process that to the table. And I know you don't know how to do that now, but once you go through the class, you will know how to do it. The alternative to that is to get that pig, to get in a trailer, and then you have to take it to a processor, and who knows where that would be. And then it costs you a lot of money. It's near about 50 cents a pound to get an animal processed, and then you really don't have any oversight on how it's done. And you know, there are things to do and things not to do, and a lot of times, you know, an animal that you've put a lot of work into, when you get it back, you're kind of disappointed. And it's happened several times to us, and I know how that can be. But if you're controlling it, you can put as much work into it, or as least work into it as, you know, if you're going to say, it's good enough, you know, it's hamburger, then fine. But if you want to make some of the finer products like the prosciuttos and the copas and the lomas and all that stuff, you're really going to want to take your time on it, which you can. At that time of the year when we butcher, it's cool out. The animal can sit out on the table. It's not gonna kill it if it's not gonna go bad. And we talk a lot about feeding too. If you're feeding your animals properly and you're feeding them what they desire, that's probably not the correct term, what they need minerally, they will resist rancidity for a long time. Okay, so that's a great class. The third day, we engage in some charcuterie processes, and that's salting, curing, making sausage, stuffing sausage, rendering fat, packaging, how to package, how not to package. Then we talk about all kinds of things, you know, all kinds of things. And the day ends when people need to go, you know, but usually people are here until about 3. We eat a lot of Mangalitsa during that day, have a lot of fun. And if you want to talk about a fun crowd, get in with a bunch of people that have traveled a long way to learn how to kill pigs. You know, it's a great crowd. Okay, so I'm ready to take some questions. But before I do, I want everybody to realize that you can go to bakersgreenacres.com, and from there you can jump onto the different tabs and see what's going on. The fall session that is in the can is going to be available to you at a very reduced rate.
I'm working on it. Yep.
Yeah, we're working on that. And the winter session also is in the can, and it will be given to you at a reduced rate. You will not get the Zoom call. So we kind of think the Zoom call is the special sauce. That's where you get to interact with I'm an expert, by the way. I should have prefaced it with that. You get to interact with the expert, and my wife's an expert too, and we hang out with a lot of experts. So, okay, yeah, we do some consulting. I can do consulting over the phone, or you can have me out to your place, and you can make some good gains on consulting with somebody that has done the thing. There's a lot of power in that, and you don't have to make all the mistakes that I've made. So it's a good way to get a jump on things. All right, I'm ready to take some questions.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for mulch in walkways in the garden?
Yeah, I do.
Maybe could you restate the question since I don't
Oh yeah. Jill wants to know, or the question was, do I have any recommendations for mulch in the walkways of your garden? There was a video out a while ago that showed a guy putting down wood chips in the walkways of the garden. And when I considered that, I thought, what do you need to break down that mulch? What components of the soil are you utilizing? One of them is nitrogen. You need a lot of nitrogen to break that down. So, just in my mind, I'm thinking that using wood chips to mulch would rob nitrogen from the plants that you want to grow. That's how I feel about it. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't do that early. I'd do it late. Okay? Up until then, I think I'd go down the row with a hoe and knock down all those weeds. I don't use that because my feeling about that is, no, I do use a hoe. I don't use wood chips as mulch because my feeling is I would rather take those wood chips and compost them down and use it that way. So I'm not drawing any of the nitrogen out of my soil to break them down. So what I use, I actually bought a machine that will go behind my mower and really pick up the lawn clippings, really pick them up. And so I get a lot of heat around here about expanding my lawn every year, but I got a really nice mower, so that's why I do it. But I bring that over to the garden, and then we use that in the walkways. Now, is that going to use nitrogen? It is, but I don't think it's going to use as much. And a lot of it dries out and sits there on the top. It's not actively working, right, during the season. And then it becomes organic material in the garden, and I just feel as though I'm doing a good thing. I don't spray my lawn down with Miracle-Gro or anything like that. I don't use anything on the lawn except compost. So here's the rest of the story. I like to make compost, and I think that my lawn is connected to my garden, which is also connected to the trees. I think that's true. So if I spread fertility on this lawn, and then I use those clippings in the garden, or I feed them to the chickens, or I feed them to the pigs, or I feed them to the cows, it's not like I'm taking care of a lawn so I can, do the Better Homes and Gardens thing. I don't call my lawnmower a lawnmower. I call it a grass harvester. Yeah, that's what I do. So, I mean, nothing's going to go to waste. You're not going to dump the stuff. get a kick out of the people that buy those bags from some store and they put them in and they leave them out for the trash guy to pick up. Yeah. It's a good source of scrounge. So there you go. There you go.
All right.
Next question, please.
Yeah. SW627. Just wondered do you have experience raising the larger breeds of chickens?
Yeah.
I'd like to know if a breed like the Jersey Giant that we raised the one time would still be tender considering it takes longer to grow.
All right, this question keeps coming up. In my experience, in my humble experience, in my humble opinion, I think that for chickens that you're going to eat, you know, broilers, I think you want to stay with the Cornish cross or the Freedom Rangers. I really like the Freedom Rangers. They take a little bit longer. When you get into the laying breeds, sometimes the catalogs will show you a dual purpose breed, and they're really not good at either. So we have two different types of chickens here. We have meat birds, and then we have egg layers. And Isa Browns are the egg layers that everybody seems to, you know, the guys that are professional egg guys seem to use. You know, they lay a brown egg. The Jersey Giants, we did them one year, and can you comment on the toughness of them? I don't recall.
They took longer than the other heritage breeds that we raised.
I think it can hear you.
Okay, and yeah, they were like a rooster, a spring rooster, which is tougher than a broiler. They were big, but they were still tougher than a broiler would be. So if you want something that's really good to eat, get a broiler or get the Freedom Rangers. They have the flavor, but they don't get as tough they don't go as long as the laying roosters do. You can eat them, but they're tough.
You could eat them if you have to, but you can eat a bowling ball too if you have to. I would say stick with the bird that's made for the purpose.
And the Freedom Ranger ranges like those.
Yep.
You raise them the same, they just go faster, so they're better eating.
Seems like they have darker meat too, the Freedom Rangers, and they take a little longer. But see, this is the thing. We're not in the commercial market anymore. So I used to be raising up to 15,000 birds a year on pasture, and we can't go any longer than 8 weeks with them because they, you know, that crowd needs to come out and a new crowd needs to go in. With the homesteading model, if they go a few weeks over, it doesn't matter, especially with a Freedom Ranger where they're walking around eating bugs and clover and things like that. You know, they're getting their sustenance, and time is not really an issue. With that statement, I would say, let's say you did for yourself, let's say a nice round number, 100 birds a year. You could do some of them, you could split it into fourths, and you could do 25 on the first Saturday when they appear to be big enough to process at least 25 of them. And so you do those 25, pick out the big ones the next Saturday, and you know, you get the idea. And then by the last Saturday, you know, you have some real jumbos in there. And that's good. A big chicken is good. We process a lot of chickens here, so for us to do 25 birds is like, we don't even need 2 people to do that. We need about 1 person to do that. Kind of a standard day is 250, well, that 200, let's say, and that's with the crew of 2 adults and a few kids. So, you know, we've been doing it a long time, but when you start out doing it, if you take my Pastured Poultry class, you'll have a big jump. But if you start out doing it, you probably won't have a plucker, an automatic plucker like we do. You will just hang that chicken up by its feet after you've scalded it, and then you just go to work pulling the feathers off. Once you get them all off, which you can do in 5 minutes if you scald it properly. Then it just goes in a cool bath until you have.
You gotta tuck your mic in a little more.
Oh, somebody say something? You put them in a cool bath until you have the rest of them done that you want to do, and then you gut them out, and now you're going to be doing this in the summertime, so you got to consider flies. So if you do small batches, that would be a good idea. But these are all things that you would see in our pastured poultry class. Okay.
Mike was wondering, am I feeding my young red wattle pigs enough, and should I be providing anything else like minerals? Twice daily, he feeds whole oats, vegetables, mushrooms, bread, and they forage under oak trees.
A good way to deal with how much to feed your pigs is if you come out there and they meet you at the fence and they're squealing, you haven't given them enough. If you go out there and there's food laying everywhere and it smells like a garbage pit, you're feeding them too much. You want them to clean up everything every day. And if you cut them a little short, like I know Mike's got his pigs out on pasture, and he's got a lot of oaks where he's at, it's going to force them to do some foraging for other stuff. And those pigs, they might not know how much they like acorns until they have to go find them and eat a few.
But then they'll love them.
Then they'll love them.
Right. And
So,
is that enough variety, or should he provide some more mineral or something with it?
no, I don't think so, Mike. If you're out on pasture, they're going to find, well, you can't give too much mineral. Let's say you buy mineral, which you can buy it by the bag, and you were to put it out there by the truckload, you're mineralizing your soil too. But the idea is that when the pigs take it in, then when they excrete it all over the field, you're mineralizing your soil too. So then year to year, your pig pasture should increase, not decrease. I mean, increase in fertility. It should if you do it right. And we'll go into that in the Homesteaders Guild. I'm not sure if that's what Mike was asking me or not. Yeah, you're giving them enough. You'll know. They'd be screaming at you if you weren't giving them enough.
Yeah. And we just went through a cycle in spring where they need more.
A flush.
Yeah.
Yeah, springtime. It's called the spring flush. It's when the grass comes in, and it's when babies are born, and the animals, just before the flush, they do a flush out of a lot of things in their bodies that they've built up during the winter. And then they become really hungry because their bodies are saying, feed me, feed me. So you're going to go through more feed in the spring flush. I'm not sure, Mike, because your weather is so different in Florida. Your cold season is our warm season. So I don't know how the spring flush works where you're at, but I would reckon that your wild animals probably birth their young in the spring, I would bet. So that would be the flush time. Ken.
Which farm animal has the best return on investment, including labor?
You're not going to believe this, Ken. Rabbits. Yeah, no joke. I read it in a book. But no, I've known this for a long time. I raised rabbits for a long time, and they have the most efficient conversion rate of carbohydrates to proteins. And then processing them is mentally it's harder than doing a chicken, but it's about the same time to do it, and you don't need a plucker. Actually, you need very little. You need a knife and something to to knock them over the head. And that's how it's done, actually. You take a piece of, you know, the sharpening stick that you sharpen up a knife with, that works perfectly. Or a piece of rod, reinforcing rod about that long, so you can kind of whip it. And then I usually just hold them behind the neck and then have their head down on something solid and then just whip it, you know, bop. And we call it bunny bopping. We call it a bunny bopping good time around here. And, you know, then you just, they'll thrash around a little bit and then they'll quit. And then you got to bleed them out right away, so you hold the ears down and take the head right off, and they'll bleed out pretty quick. And then getting the hide off, there's several ways to do it, but you'll figure that out. That's how it's done. And then they go in cold water and cool off. And
So, rabbits.
Rabbits, that's the answer. You want to know the second? It's trout, if you can do it. If you can do it. You're going to have a pond, and it needs to be deep and cold.
Eric wants to know if we have worm bins. He doesn't remember seeing any in our video.
No.
You could show him the worm bin.
Well,
Not really. I'm being facetious.
no, I don't have worm bins. I did when we were doing rabbits. This is at another farm, our first farm. I had the cages attached to the wall of a lean-to that was on the back of our barn. And they were long cages, and they were divided up into probably about 18 by 18 or 24 by 18. And they were, so we probably had 15 cages, and the buck would be on the end. And the cages were for all the does. All right, so you'd put the buck in, and then he'd do his thing. You'd give him a minute to rest a little bit, and then you put him in the next one, and so on and so on. It's pretty quick the way it does it. But the manure falls down through the cage, through the bottom of the cage. And then under that, I built, with landscaping timbers, I built a bin, you know. And I would just go through and beat that up a little bit with a fork and put hay over it. And then I put worms in it, and they propagated, and we had lots of worms. And it was pretty neat. It was a pretty neat thing to do. So, yep. There's so many things that I haven't done, and I don't know as worm bins is on the top of my list, actually.
Oh, we have them in the garden,
Yeah.
and then we feed them with the compost and
Yeah.
everything going on. So
I have a lot of worms here. So, but intentionally, I bought worms when we first got here, and I put them in, and they're all artificial.
Ken wants to know, are you going to do another video in the greenhouse showing your plant start's progress?
Yeah, I probably will. I was gone for a week, and when I came home, we had some problems. A dog got in there and did a little digging. And mostly everything is up except for my hemp. And I'm wanting to see that hemp come up. But Ken, I'll do that. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get in there and show you. Everything's about this big, you know, and I ate quite a bit of it today. Just go in there and start picking it. It's really good.
You know that was my favorite video, he says.
Which one?
The
Greenhouse one?
Yeah.
Yeah, greenhouse is a real force multiplier. Real force multiplier. You know, if we tried to plant anything outside, we're still having nights that are way too cold. Nothing would germinate, but in the greenhouse stuff does. And I got a friend that lives way north of me, and he's already taking salad to people that he does business with. So he's doing better than we are, but he's a commercial guy.
And his is heated.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Passive.
Yeah, ours is just passively heated. I have a wood stove in there, but I don't use it, and I don't plan on using it.
Another garden question. This person was reading about rows or beds.
Rows or beds?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it depends how you're going to operate your system. In my case, this garden, we just took the fence down that was around it because we put sheep in there. So they spent the winter on there, and before the sheep were in there, there was calves in there. So instead of me having to scrape up their manure from some other place and bring it over here, I let them manure right in that spot. Now, if there was permanent beds in there, I couldn't do that. And I am a rototiller. There's trains of thought. Some of my friends are no-tillers. They even have t-shirts that says no-tillers. And they shame us tillers terribly, terribly. Sometimes my feelings get hurt. But I have taken to tilling, and I plan on continue to till. And so I don't want to have permanent beds because I want to run my tiller through there. But I do a lot of composting as well. And then I do a lot of livestock on garden areas in the off season. And that is a good thing because you're adding to the soil all the time. You're keeping it covered with bedding, which is a good thing too. You want to keep the soil covered because there's a lot of little friendly guys in there that you want to keep them in good shape. You don't want them to just get frosted out. Our garden, last year we took out all the carrots that we could or that we needed, and then we bedded over them with straw, and we just took the last of them out today because we're getting ready to till it here in a while. I won't do it, I'm not going to do it like tomorrow or anything, but I am scraping everything to the middle, all the bedding and stuff, and I want it in a pile, so when it starts to heat, I can turn it, and hopefully I can get it broke down in time to use it on the garden. No, I don't think so. I don't think it'll make it, but I can lift it off the garden and I can take it up to my composting area. The compost that I put on the garden is going to be stuff that's finished. Okay.
But what about rows versus like how we plant in beds?
Oh, okay. With rows, I'm assuming that you're talking like a single row, seed, 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 like every foot or every 6 inches. It's really a waste of space because then you're going to have a foot walkway in between that, and you really would be better off to do a bed that is 24, 36. What have we gone before? We've gone
4 feet.
4 feet. And the reason is from the walkway, you can reach in 24 inches to easily weed and harvest and all that stuff. I think that's too far though. I think I would go 36.
That's been our optimum.
Yeah, and put the rows, if you're going to do rows, do 3 rows on a 36. Depending on how you're going to plant. If you use an actual planter to do it, it's nice because you can go in a straight line. And then, you can do the mulching, wait till they come up and do the mulching around them. We even put out this biodegradable mulch. It looks like black plastic mulch, but it is not. It is biodegradable. I believe it's made out of hemp, yes?
I don't remember, but
Yeah.
plant.
Plant-based.
Yep, plant-based.
And it gives the plants that you want out there a jump on the weeds. It gives the plants a jump on those weeds. So that's what I think. And well, you didn't ask me about drip irrigation, so I won't. I'm going to try to keep it to answer the questions that I'm getting.
Okay. Can I keep goats and pigs together? That was another question we had this week.
Yeah, you can. The only thing that you're gonna, well, there might be a couple things you want to look out for though. Goats and pigs. Goats, if they get into, let's say you put down a line of grain on the ground, if you're feeding right on the ground. I always say don't use hog chow. People do it anyway. But if your goats get into that hog chow, they will eat until they're dead. And we actually had it happen. Rascal. Yeah, so you got to be careful with that. Pigs, you can't overfeed a pig. Pigs will just eat until they don't want anymore, but they're not going to die from what they ate. Goats will, you know, if they get into a good hot feed like a hog chow. And I'll say again, I don't recommend using hog chow ever. Don't ever bring this stuff on your farm. But you didn't ask me that. So the answer, in my opinion, is yes. I don't do it that way. You won't see goats and pigs together. I have them separated, but I don't have goats anymore. I got through that. You will too someday.
They're a good starter animal.
Good starter animal. Yeah, they build up your tolerance to animals. If you can have goats and you know, you come home and you see your goat standing on your car or something like that, or you plant some nice apple trees and they have plenty of things to eat, but they're going to eat your apple trees that you planted. Or your fence.
But no animal will teach you how to fence like goats.
Yeah.
That's that's how you know how to fence.
Yeah.
All right. Another question from earlier this week. This person's building a chicken coop and wondering if using drywall to help insulate is a good idea or a bad idea.
I'm going to have to be a little dogmatic on this one. It's a bad idea. Chickens love to peck stuff. And once there's a little scrape there or something, they're going to peck it. And they go, wow. They'll peck it again. Before you know it, you're not going to have drywall. They'll peck holes through it. No, chickens don't need heat in the winter. Here's my little plug for safety. Heat lamps are a bad thing. They're really a bad thing. If you're going to use them, you have to use them very, very controlled, and only use them in buildings that you want to burn down. That's to be on the safe side. If it's a building you don't want burnt down, I wouldn't use them. And chickens, full-grown chickens, they are designed, they don't need heat. They don't need heat. It's good if you can keep the wind, you know, they're in a nice still air place. I think I made somebody mad about making fun of goats.
Oh, no, he said good to know about goats.
Oh. But you don't have to give them any heat. And if you want to know my philosophy on that, I will tell you, in the homesteading model, you're okay with the way chickens are. In the commercial way, you're not okay with the way chickens are. And here's what chickens do. In the spring, they lay like crazy. And you wind up having so many eggs around that you wind up reducing the price on them. But they don't reduce the price of the feed at the feed store, you know. If anything, in the wintertime it goes up. So you want those chickens to lay as much as they can while they're laying, and then you learn how to preserve those eggs for a year or 2 years. And yes, it can be done. If you go to Baker's Green Acres YouTube and go through there, you'll see Jill did a video. Remember what it was titled? Water glassing eggs,
Yeah,
preserving
and then-
eggs, something like that.
Yep.
And you can learn how to do that, and it's really a good thing. and then you'll have all the eggs you need for your house. But usually people put heat or light in with their chickens, so it'll force them to lay in the wintertime when they're not really, that's not their thing. They really don't want to do that. And so that's my philosophy on it. I get all the eggs that I need in May, June, July, and August, and probably September. I get more eggs than I need. And you know, I don't reduce the price on eggs just because I have a whole bunch of them. And every other homesteader around has a bunch of them too. Okay?
Yep.
No drywall. No insulation. I could just see pink insulation hanging out there. The chickens would have a good time with that.
Oh yeah, because they love to peck red
Yeah,
and pink.
and pink.
I just had one. Oh, Robert Veronda. Haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, really. How you doing, Robert?
He wants to
Good to
know,
hear from you.
Yeah. Where do you get the propane heaters that we use for the chickens?
Strombergs. That was quick. I can say it again. I know you're a Marine. Strombergs. 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 There it is. What? He can take it.
Oh yeah. This has a sick feeder pig. Appears to have a cold, slight labored breathing, goopy eyes, eating and drinking yet, clearly a runt. Is a Duroc. Any recommendations for a natural remedy?
Clearly a runt. Natural remedy.
For a cold. Pig with a cold.
Yeah, pig with a cold. We're not big antibiotic users. Like, I would never put antibiotic in feeds just to, you know, as a preventative. But it's not a bad idea to keep a bottle of A200 around and a couple syringes. And you want a natural one. So, I mean, and then you give a little bit of antibiotic to a baby pig. By the time that pig is ready for the processing, it's a year from there. So, I'm not like an anti-antibiotic type person. I used some last spring, and the bottle was in the fridge for a long, long time. So that is one way you could go. It sounds like you got a runt, and it's a runt for a reason. If it makes it through this and it lives, it'll be okay, obviously. But if it doesn't and it dies, and you know what? I hate to say it, but a lot of times you got to just let him go, because if you nurse him along, whatever it is that's making him runty, you're kind of keeping it on the farm. Where if he dies, whatever is making him runty dies with him. He might have just been, you know, not aggressive enough to get on there and feed like the rest of them. But goopy eyes, I'm going to have to say I don't know on that. What would you do? A concoction?
Give it a clove of garlic.
Clove of garlic.
Maybe some oregano oil. Colds just have to run their course. So if it starts coughing a lot, the antibiotic definitely. It's to prevent pneumonia. And make sure it can rest. Give it a quiet corner.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Excuse me. Do you have another question for me? Can you people give some questions out there, please? Give it a shot of Jack Daniels. All right, I need some questions here from the peanut gallery. Jill's saying that we're out of them. Oh, yeah. we have one puppy left,
Yeah.
maybe two, but this is a puppy. All right, this thing's about 40 pounds right now, and nobody wants him. Maybe he's just a little too ugly, but you know, these are Great Pyrenees, and we've had them for a long time, and they've done right by us. If you're going to be doing pastured poultry, you're going to be doing lambs and baby goats and stuff like that. You really need a guardian dog to keep predators away. And if you live in, even if you live in town, predation is really bad. But long shot revival.
Yeah, he said you could have dropped the puppy off there.
Yeah.
I said you ought to come get him. Oh, Ken, I'm gonna have to look back. He had a question about YouTube. Do you think that YouTube is worthwhile, or is it a major hassle?
No, I think it's worthwhile. There's so much information that you can glean from it now. I think it's a great thing. As far as making videos on there, I just do. I just do. And it's something I started a long time ago. I was a big show and tell guy in grade school, and I've missed it. I've missed it a lot. So for me, YouTube has been really good. I hope it stays around. I don't get censored anymore because I don't talk about things they don't like on there, like the Constitution and things like that. So I do okay on YouTube. So that's what I know.
We've got a good community that comes around now.
Yeah.
Good place to meet.
The homesteading world really is about community. If we're neighbors and we're both commercial farmers, and you ask me, how do you get such a good crop on your corn? I might say, oh, I mix Roundup in with the fertilizer, you know, because you're both competing for the same dollars. But if we're both homesteaders and I have a little bit more of something, I'm likely to give it to you thinking that you will give me some of yours, or we share, and you know, things like that, because we're not competing for the same dollars, which makes people crazy. So the homesteading world is much more friendly farmer to farmer than the commercial world. I mean, I live in a commercial farming neighborhood, and a lot of these farmers that live close don't speak, and I don't know why. It's just, it breeds contempt, I guess. Was there another question?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Fun on the homestead. Lorna wanted to know how the calves are doing, the ones that were being doctored.
The calves, we got 3 of them. 2 of them had lungs that were damaged from methane. The barns that they were in were like, were not, you know, you have to stay ahead of them, and they get a lot of methane in them, and so the lungs got burned. One of them died. The other 2 made it, and they're doing fine. I don't think that we're going to keep them. They're females, so we'll probably sell them to somebody that needs a milk cow. And you probably want to get them now and then kind of make pets out of them. And that way when you go to milking them, you know, they're friendly, and, you know, they come when you call them and all that stuff. Cows are really easy to make pets out of. They can become very friendly animals. I have a new cow now that I just got a few weeks ago, and she's already learned the routine. She hears me turn the milker on, and she comes right in. So they're doing well. They're doing well.
Yeah, the one that really coughed, I noticed that she's not. Even with this warmer weather and the rain and everything, she's doing really good. And she looks good.
Yeah. Part of part of what we've learned, I mean, like I said, everything kind of comes together, but this body and the bodies of these other beings are regenerative. So it's not like if I cut a finger off, it's not going to grow back. But if part of my lung gets damaged, cells in there slough off and new cells take its place. So we think that the lungs in this one calf that was coughing real bad, we think she's healed. And of course we won't know unless we butcher her, but we wouldn't do that if she's a milk cow. But the other one that died, she was probably about 300 pounds, so we did butcher her. And not that we're going to eat it, but the dogs need to eat, so we got all that put in the freezer, and her lungs looked like hamburger from that methane. That environment was so bad.
Same as someone with emphysema.
Yeah. So don't smoke.
Okay, this is a mushroom question from SW627. Are you
Okay.
still doing shiitake mushrooms? How'd they do last year? I got a real kick out of your Japan story.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still doing shiitakes, and I really like them. It's the best mushroom that I've come across. And yeah, I set up a whole bunch of new logs last year, and they did not fruit last year. And I think they will fruit this year, but my old logs did, and I plan to do some more logs this year. And I want to make videos of that, of us doing it and how we do it.
That's going to be on the Homesteaders Guild.
That's going to be, yeah,
be in depth on that.
Homesteaders Guild.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. It's a great way to go. It really is. If you like mushrooms, that is the way to go. I mean, there's even some bucks in it too, or trading stock with your neighbors. You know, if you grow mushrooms and your neighbor's wife does pedicures, you know, she can hook you up and she'll be eating mushrooms and you'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe wanted to know, raising turkeys, tractor or pasture?
Your chicken tractors are not going to be big enough unless you make them big enough for turkeys. Turkeys can cover some ground, and they have to be fenced in, or they'll be where you don't want them to be. I can almost guarantee it. They'll be in your garden, and they'll be in your tool shop, and they'll do all kinds of things, and they can make a mess, big mess. So I guess, is this Joe Brown? What I would do is if I've seen Joe's place, I was helping him this weekend or this week. I was out at his place. What I would do at your place is I would use one of your slots in your grow area. Gee, you might even keep them in with the pigs. You might even do that because Joe's got some pretty good size pastures. I would say they're probably 100 by 300, and they're pretty good size. So if you had, let's say, 30 pigs in there and you had 30 turkeys, I think they could coexist.
As long as they have a place to roost up at night.
Yeah.
So they're not on the ground.
Yeah. The turkeys got to be able to get out of the way of the Mangalitsas. And the Mangalitsas, they will eat them if there was a sick one he couldn't get away, they would. So I don't know if you could put them in there too young. Thing about a tractor is it adds a lot of maintenance, and your turkeys are around for a long time. It seems like you get them in June.
And turkey, you'd have to have a big tractor because turkeys like space. They don't
Yeah.
like to be hemmed in.
Yeah.
Over time.
So we don't. We have a pond down there that is fenced in, and I'm not going to do that though this year. I have an area over here where my calves are, and I grew rye in there, and I'm going to put my turkeys in there. I need them closer to the house so they can be protected by the dogs. We did lose a couple of them to night predators because my dogs can't go every place on the farm. They can only go as far as the wire is, and I just didn't put it over the whole 80 acres because, you know, if you ever have a break in the wire, then you got to find it, and if it's over the whole 80 acres, it could be a whole day event, and the dogs don't really need to go that far. So,
This is Nate.
Nate,
He's getting 4 Mangalitsa pigs and has 9 acres, not all flat, mostly pine trees. What should I feed him?
Mangalitsas will eat just about anything. What you don't want to feed them is hog chow. Don't. But you'll go to the grain company, or you'll go to the co-op and say, I got some pigs that I need to feed. Oh, you got to feed them hog chow. Don't do it, but people do. Hog chow has a lot of bad stuff in it because they can still put hog protein in hog chow, whereas you can't feed cattle to cattle anymore because of mad cow disease. They haven't come up with mad pig disease yet, but you don't want to be doing that. So if I was you, I'd become a specialist in scrounge. Breweries are a good place, a source of spent grains. In the fall time, you can get pumpkins, you can get apples. If you live out by the coast, you can feed them seaweed. If you shoot a deer and there's some stuff that you don't want, pigs will eat it. If you process chickens, they'll eat the heads, feet, and the buttholes. And it's
Stuff off
legitimate.
Prep tables at restaurants.
Yeah, stuff from
grocery
restaurants.
stores.
Any dairy products that are left over, they'll eat. I have a junk bread contract, and my pigs eat a lot of bread.
It's organic. Good bread.
Yeah, it's
No.
organic. It's organic.
Not Wonder Bread.
No, it's not Wonder Bread. But if you got 9 acres, there's a lot out there, more than you think. And if I were you, I'd fence it and then sub-fence it so you could have it in a couple areas, because grazing is an art, and the pigs are going to go out there and they're going to eat what they want first, and then whenever it is that they ate comes back again and they take that second bite of it, they can kill it. So, like, let's say alfalfa comes up and they go out and they bite that off. You want to move them to the second part of your grow area so they can't take the second bite off of whatever it is. And if you've got pigs out there and it's wet or it's hilly or whatever, you can add a lot of seed to it, and as they're walking around, they'll push it in. So you can plant pumpkins out there, you can plant turnips, you can plant all kinds of stuff, and as the years go by, you'll just have stuff that volunteers, and your pasture that you're managing here will increase in time. Because remember, you're going to get rain, you're going to get sunshine, you're going to have the wind blowing over it, and your pigs are going to be manuring on it, and they're going to be urinating on it, so they're going to add to the fertility of it. 4 pigs over 9 acres that's a lot of space. It's too much space. It's too much space. You want to go back and you want to access some of the videos that we did on our grow area, where I have a 300 by 100, and then I subdivide it into 100 by 100, 100 by 100, and 100 by 100. And then I plant it, and I plant them, I alternate them. The pigs will be on one section, and 2 other sections are growing. And then I move them to section 2, and I replant section 1. And you can do this all summer long, and I did 40 last year on that. And not that I didn't feed them other stuff, I did, but the forages that they were getting were high quality, and they made super, super good Mangalitsa pigs. So you can't go wrong doing forages. There's a lot to learn there about what you can plant and what's going to grow on your soil. It'd be nice if we knew where you lived, and nice to know, you know, what grows there. Like if it's pine, it's probably sandy. We planted a lot of rye in sand, and it grew, and then we were able to put in turnips, and they grew. And you know, it takes time, but pigs are a real prime mover in the fertility game. But don't think that they're not going to dig, because they're made to dig. And you got to make it so that digging is working for you instead of working against you. Some on a lot of these pages that that I peruse or did for a while, people would get all upset that they wanted to graze their pigs on a hay field and couldn't understand, why are they digging? It's because that's what pigs do. That's what that round thing on the end of their nose is for rooting. And so then if you put hog rings in their nose, which is kind of cruel, they won't dig like that because it hurts them. I don't know if that's the way to go. I don't think it's the way to go. I think what you want to do is watch my video on the grow area, and I'm getting ready to head on out there and start talking about it again, because I want to grow sun hemp out there this year, and I just have this tremendous vision of what's going to happen and how happily ever after we're going to live now that we can grow hemp. It's got to be good if they outlawed it, right? Okay, it's 8:08, so we're about out of time. We did can our Saturday morning Facebook for the year, because it's too busy Saturday morning to take an hour out. This isn't bad. We will be continuing on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, until we don't want to anymore. So if we have a lot of people participating, that's good. If you could share this around with some of your homestead buddies and bring them our way. And please check out bakersgreenacres.com and also Bakers Green Acres YouTube, and share those around too. That would be very, very helpful. Okay, it's Mark from Bakers Green Acres. Remember,